The Pechenegs or Patzinaksh were a semi-nomadic Turkic people of the Central Asian steppes speaking the Pecheneg language, which belonged to the Turkic language family. Three of the ruling clans of the Pechenegs were the Kankalis, Kangli. Ethnonym. The Pechenegs ethnonym derived from the Old Turkic word for brother-in-law, implying that it initially referred to in-law related clan or tribe. Sources written in different languages used similar denominations when referring to the confederation of the Pecheneg tribes. They were mentioned under the names Bjnak, Bunak or Barjanak in Arabic and Persian texts, as B. Californianag in classical Tibetan documents, as Pakanaki in works written in Georgian, and as Pechenegs in Armenian. Anakomnina and other Byzantine authors referred to the Pechenegs as Patzinakoi or Patzinakitai. In medieval Latin texts, the Pechenegs were referred to as Pisanasha, Bissani or Bessi. East Slavic peoples use the terms Pechenegi or Pechenezi, while the Poles mentions them as Pechengawi or Pisaragi. The Hungarian word for Pecheneg is Byssenia. According to Constantine VII Porphyrogenitus, 3 of the 8 Pechenegs provinces or clans were known under the name Kanga. He added that they received this denomination because they are more valiant and noble than the rest of the people, and that is what the title Kanga signifies. However, no Turkic word with the meaning suggested by the emperor has been demonstrated. Armand Vambery connected the Kanga denomination to the Kyrgyz words Kangir, Kangirmik and Karnikara, while Carlyle Aylmer McCartney associated it with the Chagatai word gang. Omilian Pritzik proposed that the name had initially been a composite term deriving from the Tocharian word for stone and the Iranian ethnonym as. If the latter assumption is valid, the ethnonym of the 3 Kanga tribes suggests that Iranian elements contributed to the formation of the Pecheneg people. Language. Mahmud al-Kashgari, an 11th-century man of letters specialized in Turkic dialects, argued that the language spoken by the Pechenegs was a variant of the Cuman and Oghuz idioms. He suggested that foreign influences on the Pechenegs gave rise to phonetical differences between their tongue and the idioms spoken by other Turkic peoples. Anakomnina likewise stated that the Pechenegs and the Cumans shared a common language, although the Pecheneg language itself died out centuries ago. The names of the Pecheneg provinces, recorded by Constantine Porphyrogenitus, prove that the Pechenegs spoke a Turkic language. History. Origins. Ibn Khordadbeh, Mahmud al-Kashgari, Muhammad al-Idrisi and many other Muslim scholars agreed that the Pechenegs belonged to the Turkic peoples. The Russian Primary Chronicle stated that the Turkmens, Pechenegs, Turks, and Polovshans descended from the godless sons of Ishmael, who had been sent as a chastisement to the Christians. Paul Pelliot was the first to propose that a 7th-century Chinese work, the Book of Sui, preserved the earliest record on the Pechenegs. It writes of the Peiju, a people settled along the Nchuna land peoples east of Fulin. In contrast with this view, Victor Spinai argues that the first certain reference to the Pechenegs can be read in a Tibetan translation of an 8th-century Oghuz text. It narrates a war between 2 peoples, the B. Californianag and the Hor. The Pechenegs inhabited the region along the river Siadayu at the time when the first records were made of them. Westward migration. The Pechenegs were forced to leave their Central Asian homeland by a coalition of the Oghuz Turks, Karluks and Kimaks. The Pechenegs' westward migration started between the 790s and 850s, but its exact date cannot be determined. The Pechenegs settled in the steppe corridor between the rivers Ural and Volga. According to Gardezi and other Muslim scholars who based their works on 9th-century sources, the Pechenegs' new territories were bordered by the Cumans, Khazars, Oghuz Turks and Slavs. The same sources also narrate that the Pechenegs regularly waged war against the Khazars and the latter's vassals, the Burtis. The Khazars and the Oghuz Turks made an alliance against the Pechenegs and attacked them. Outnumbered by the enemy, the Pechenegs started a new migration, invaded the dwelling places of the Hungarians and forced him to leave. There is no consensual date for this second migration of the Pechenegs. Pritzik argues that it took place around 830, but Christus suggests that it could hardly occur before the 850s. The Pechenegs settled along the rivers Donets and Kubin. It is plausible that the distinction between the Turkic Pechenegs and Khazar Pechenegs mentioned in the 10th century Hudud al-Alam had its origin in this period. Spinai proposes that the latter denomination most probably refers to Pecheneg groups accepting Khazar suzerainty. In addition to these two branches, a third group of Pechenegs existed in this period. Constantine Porphyrogenitus and Ibn Fadlan mention that those who decided not to leave their homeland were incorporated into the Oghuz Federation of Turkic tribes. However, it is uncertain whether this group's formation is connected to the Pechenegs' first or second migration. According to Mahmud al-Kashgari, one of the Ucok clans of the Oghuz Turks was still formed by Pechenegs in the 1060s. Originally, the Pechenegs had their dwelling on the river Atil, and likewise on the river Gaik, having common frontiers with the Khazars and the so-called Oghuzes. But 50 years ago the so-called Oghuzes made common cause with the Khazars and joined battle with the Pechenegs and prevailed over them and expelled them from their country, which the so-called Oghuzes have occupied till this day. At the time when the Pechenegs were expelled from their country, some of them of their own will and personal decision stayed behind there and united with the so-called Oghuzes, and even to this day they live among them. And where such distinguishing marks is separate, them often betray their origin and how it came about that they were split off from their own folk. For their tunics are short, reaching to the knee, and their sleeves are cut off at the shoulder, whereby, you see, they indicate that they have been cut off from their own folk and those of their race. Constantine Porphyrogenitus, Der Administrander Imperia Origins and Area. In Mahmud Kashgari's 11th century work Divan Lufat al-Turk, the name Pecheneg is given two meanings. The first is, a Turkish nation living around the country of the Rum, where Rum was the Turkish word for the Eastern Roman Empire. Kashgari's second definition of Pecheneg is a branch of Oghuz Turks. He subsequently described the Oghuz as being formed of 22 branches, of which the 19th branch was named Pecheneg. Max Vazma derives this name from the Turkic word for brother-in-law, relative. By the 9th and 10th centuries, they controlled much of the steppes of southwestern Eurasia and the Crimean Peninsula, although an important factor in the region at the time. Like most nomadic tribes, their concept of statecraft failed to go beyond random attacks on neighbors and spells as mercenaries for other powers. According to Constantine Porphyrogenitus, writing in c. 950, Patzinakir, the Pecheneg realm, stretched west as far as the Sirat River, and was 4 days distant from Torkirs. The whole of Patzinakir is divided into 8 provinces with the same number of great princes. The provinces are these. The name of the first province is Ertum, of the second, Zor, of the third, Gila, of the fourth, Kolpe, of the fifth, Karaboy, of the sixth, Talmut, of the seventh, Chopin, of the eighth, Zapon. At the time at which the Pechenegs were expelled from their country, the princes were, in the province of Ertum, Bateses, in Zor, Kouel, in Gila, Korkautai, in Kolpe, Ipaus, in Karaboy, Kaidum, in the province of Talmut, Kostas, in Chopin, Giatses, in the province of Zapon, Batis. Constantine Porphyrogenitus, Der Administrander Imperia. According to Omolian Pritzik, the Pechenegs are descendants from the ancient Kangas who originate from Tashkent. In Armenian sources, in the Armenian chronicles of Matthew of Edessa, Pechenegs are mentioned a couple of times. The first mention is in chapter 75, where it says that in the year 499 the Byzantine nation caused great destruction in many provinces of Rome, i.e., the Byzantine territories. The second is in chapter 103, which is about the Battle of Manzikert. In that chapter it is told that the allies of Rome, Padzunic and Uzed tribes, which changed their sides at the peak of the battle and began fighting against the Byzantine forces, side by side with the Seljuk Turks. In the 132nd chapter, a war between Rome and the Pechenegs is described, and after the defeat of the Roman army, an unsuccessful siege of Constantinople by the Pechenegs is mentioned. In that chapter, the Pechenegs are described as an all-archer army. In chapter 299, the Armenian prince, Vassal, who was in the Roman army, sent a platoon of Pechenegs to the aid of the Christians' alliance with Byzantium. In the 9th century, the Byzantines became allied with the Pechenegs, using them to fend off other, more dangerous tribes such as the Rus and the Magyars. The Oghuz, another Turkic steppe people, eventually expelled the Pechenegs from their homeland. In the process, they also seized most of their livestock and other goods. An alliance of Oghuz, Pechenegs, and Karluks was also pressing the Pechenegs, but another group, the Samanids, defeated that alliance. Driven further west by the Khazars and Cumans by 889, the Pechenegs in turn drove the Magyars west of the Dnieper River by 892. Bulgarian Tsar Simeon I employed the Pechenegs to help fend off the Magyars. The Pechenegs were so successful that they drove out the Magyars remaining in Etelkos and the Pontic steppes, forcing them westward towards the Pannonian plain, where they later founded the Hungarian state. Late history and decline. In the 9th century, the Pechenegs began a period of wars against Kiev and Rus. For more than 2 centuries they had launched raids into the lands of Rus, which sometimes escalated into full-scale wars. The Pecheneg wars against Kiev and Rus caused the Slavs from Wallachian territories to gradually migrate north of the Dniestr in the 10th and 11th centuries. Rus-Pecheneg temporary military alliances also occurred, however, as during the Byzantine campaign in 943 led by Igor. In 968 the Pechenegs attacked and besieged Kiev. Some joined the Prince of Kiev, Sviatoslav I, in his Byzantine campaign of 970 to 971. Though eventually they ambushed and killed the Kievan prince in 972. According to the primary chronicle, the Pecheneg Khan Kuya made a chalice from Sviatoslav's skull, in accordance with the custom of steppe nomads. The fortunes of the Rus-Pecheneg confrontation swung during the reign of Vladimir I of Kiev, who founded the town of Pereyaslav upon the site of his victory over the Pechenegs, followed by the defeat of the Pechenegs during the reign of Yaroslav I the Wise in 1036. Shortly thereafter, other nomadic peoples replaced the weakened Pechenegs in the Pontic steppe, the Cumans and the Turks. According to Mikhailo Rashevsky, after its defeat near Kiev, the Pecheneg horde moved towards the Danube, crossed the river, and disappeared out of the Pontic steppes. After centuries of fighting involving all their neighbors, the Byzantine Empire, Bulgaria, Kievan Rus, Khazaria, and the Magyars, the Pechenegs were annihilated as an independent force in 1091 at the Battle of Livonian by a combined Byzantine and Cuman army, under Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos. Alexios I recruited the defeated Pechenegs, whom he settled in the district of Moglena, into a tagma of the Moglena Pechenegs. Attacked again in 1094 by the Cumans, many Pechenegs were slain or absorbed. The Byzantines defeated the Pechenegs again at the Battle of Beria in 1122, on the territory of modern-day Bulgaria. For some time, significant communities of Pechenegs still remained in the Kingdom of Hungary. With time the Balkan Pechenegs lost their national identity and became fully assimilated, mostly with Magyars and Bulgarians. In the 12th century, according to Byzantine historian John Kinnamos, The Pechenegs fought as mercenaries for the Byzantine Emperor Manuel I Komnenos in southern Italy against the Norman king of Sicily, William the Bad. A group of Pechenegs was present at the Battle of Andria in 1155. The Pechenegs were last mentioned in 1168 as members of Turkic tribes known in the chronicles as the Black Hats. In 15th century Hungary, some people adopted the surname Byssenia. They were most numerous in the county of Tilna. One of the earliest introductions of Islam into Eastern Europe came about through the work of an early 11th century Muslim prisoner who was captured by the Byzantines. The Muslim prisoner was brought into the Byssenia territory of the Pechenegs, where he taught and converted individuals to Islam. In the late 12th century, Abu Hamid al-Ghandathi referred to Hungarian Pechenegs, probably Muslims, living disguised as Christians. In the southeast of Serbia, there is a village called Pecheneg founded by Pechenegs. After war with Byzantium, the broken remnants of the tribes found refuge in the area, where they established their settlement. Leaders: Curia c. 970s, Metaga c. 980s, Kuchug c. 990s.